Spock's Beard was born out of, well, I guess we failed, my brother and I, so we might as well go down doing what we really, really love.
Your home for melodic heavy metal. This is the Signals of Intuition. There's brand new Neal Morse right there with their lead-off single, There's a Highway, from his new record, Jesus Christ, The Exorcist, a rock opera, sort of like Neal's version of Jesus Christ Superstar, where he tells the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. You're listening to the Signals of Intuition, your home for melodic hard rock and heavy metal, and tonight on the show we're going to be speaking to the singer of that band, Mr. Neal Morse. He is the band leader for the Neal Morse Band, as well as Spock's Beard in the past, Transatlantic, and Flying Colors, as well as a number of other projects he's been involved with over the years. So let's get Neal on the line right now.
Hello.
Hey, Neal, it's Brandon calling from the Signals of Intuition. How's it going?
Hi, Brandon. How you doing?
Doing well. Okay, so when I do these, I always like to sort of start at the beginning of you as a musician and then work our way up to the new material right now. So I guess looking back at the beginning, where did you grow up and how did you get started in music?
I grew up in Southern California. My dad was a music teacher and a choir director, and so I grew up with a lot of music in the house. And I started playing. I was singing harmony when I was 3. Started playing piano when I was 5. We were a music family, so it was always everywhere, and it was at the center of the culture as well.
Sure. Oh, of course, especially back then. I mean, music was just, it was everything, you know, rock stars and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So when you started playing in bands and stuff, was that in high school, obviously? Did you do your first band then, or?
Oh, no, earlier. I started guitar when I was 9. And so, yeah, I was in bands in junior high school, actually. My brothers and I had a band. We all played and sang, and so we did the music of the day, Deep Purple, and yes, actually, I remember we did All Good People and lots of different things. You know, whatever we got into at the moment, David Bowie or whatever.
Sure. And then, so as you got older, did you attend like a music school, like MIT or Berkeley or anything like that, or?
No, I didn't actually. My dad wanted me to, but I thought I knew everything I needed to know to do what I wanted to do. And so I was quite an arrogant young man, I suppose. You know, I had a certain amount of musical knowledge just from being in my family. My dad, you know, had a music degree and was a teacher. And so we learned, you know, I learned a lot about reading music and things. But all the music that I did in my bands and in pretty much in my life after the age of 10 or something was pretty much all by ear. And so me and my brothers, you know, we were always trying to figure out the latest songs, you know, how to play them, what were the correct chords. And we kind of had a little bit of a competition about who could figure out the right way to do it the fastest. And so I think our ears got a lot of really good training during that time. And my brothers and I can all hear chord changes very, you know, so that's really a lot of music theory is a lot of ear training stuff, and I just got that in a real natural way.
Sure. Well, as a fellow guitar player, I totally hear you there. It's like I can read music to a point, but really it's listening and going, oh, okay, it's like this and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and especially like in the 70s when I was a teenager, songbooks were largely a joke. They were incorrect.
Yeah.
You know, if you got the songbook version, it's like, oh, dude, that's not the right way to play that. They'd have wrong chords all the time. So they were useless.
Yeah, or they'd have like a G chord and you'd just take it as, you know, your standard open G instead of like, you know, played somewhere else on the neck or whatever else. So
yeah, and all of our friends were musicians. So everybody was showing each other how to play things. That's what we did in our social time.
Yeah, it's just jam and hang out and figure out tunes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I've read that, like, in your 20s, you worked, I guess, for Hollywood and tried to sell songs and soundtracks and that kind of thing?
Well, I tried to. I never really did anything. I never really got any actual gigs. I did some funny things. I worked on, like, some ad campaigns, but none of it ever actually got aired or stuck. No, I really couldn't get arrested in Hollywood, actually.
And so after that, in the early 90s, I guess, you went to Europe and just kind of bust and that kind of thing? And that was sort of like, where did you go? What did you do during that time? Did you just kind of play on the street at night and, find people to live with? Or how did you sort of...
That is how that went, yeah. I spent about 4 months, I think, in Europe in the early 90s, maybe 90 and 91 or something around there. I can't remember it all now, but I did. Yeah, I did play on the street all over Europe, and I wanted to just have a great adventure and wrote a lot of songs. And yeah, I'd just be playing on the street in Berlin. Somebody would hear me and say, "Hey, you should go to this. I think there's a guy over at this club that would really like you." And so I wound up getting a gig at a club for a little while, just playing blues and whatever. And, In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel, I remember. And oldies. They liked a lot of oldies at that time. So I'd play like old 50s and 60s tunes and stuff. And I remember playing on the street. It was also in Berlin. I stayed in Berlin for quite a while and made some friends and stayed with people there. And I remember some guys saw me and they put me on a stage in the middle of Alexanderplatz, like there was in the middle of a big square in Berlin. Some things opened up for me. That guy that owned that club said, "Hey, I think you'll be a star here if you stay here." But I didn't feel to stay there. I came home and things were really worse at home in LA for me after that because I left all my gigs for all that time. So I didn't have any work, so I had to try to generate work in LA. Oh boy, that was tough.
Well, especially by that time too. I mean, music was changing quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and all the live music venues were closing. A lot of them that paid. The places that paid. There were still a lot of places you could play for free, but actual paying gigs were getting fewer and fewer to come by. And so I started to try to generate gigs. Like I would just go to a place that seemed like maybe they should have live music. And I would say, "Hey, I'll come in here and play for free. And if you like it, maybe we can talk about continuing." So I actually created some gigs like that.
And then is that sort of how Spock's Beard forms?
No, Spock's Beard, for much of my life, my income-based life and my non-income-based life, my creative life was very separate. Because, if nobody's giving you any money for your creative work, you know what I mean? It's a separate thing.
Sure.
So Spock's Beard was born out of, I guess we failed, my brother and I. We failed. So we might as well go down doing what we really, really love. And I'd taken this self-growth course kind of thing, motivational course in around 90, 91, around that same time. And they promised breakthroughs in your creativity and whatnot. And I wrote the entire Spock's Beard, The Light album in the first couple weeks after getting out of that course. I just kind of woke up creatively, like I'd gotten really depressed about my career and life because they were the same thing.
Yeah.
And music and my career and life were all the same thing. And so the fact that I had never gotten a record deal or a publishing deal and was nowhere and was over 30 I just figured that my life was over. What was I going to do with my life? So I wrote this music just like, well, what the heck? I'll just write something crazy that nobody will like. And over time, that's the miracle. Over time, that was in the early 90s, and then the Spock's Beard album, that album, The Light, came out in 95. And, just real underground and tiny. And over time, it's grown into, my progressive rock music has grown into an actual career.
Yeah.
So it's just incredible. Now I'm 58 and Jesus Christ, the Exorcist is coming out on Frontier. So it's just a miracle as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Just gradually to jump ahead almost to that, but how do you come to meet Mike Portnoy in the late 90s? Were you already like a fan of Dream Theater? Did you seek him out, or how did that relationship come to be?
No, I was not a Dream Theater fan. Some people had brought to my attention that this drummer was talking us up in his interviews. And of course, they were killing it at that time. So they were getting a lot of press. Spock's was still very, very underground. And he started, just talking about how much he liked us. And people were pointing that out to me. And then a mutual friend hooked us up And Mike called me, and we were just making conversation. I was in the Eric Burden band at the time, playing keyboards, out of town a lot. Now I've got little kids, and I feel like I'm damaging them by leaving. So I think I was talking to him about that, how I wish I could get out of it. Even though I loved Eric and everything, I just didn't really like the road life so much. And he said, well, I might be able to help you with that. I'd like to do a project with you. And that was how Transatlantic started.
So did Mike bring on the other guys? He brought in, is it Royne? I don't know how to pronounce his name, from the Flower Kings.
Oh, it's Royna.
Royna.
Actually, I brought Royna in. It was originally, Mike wanted to do a project with me and Jim Matheos from Face Warning.
Really?
The original idea.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that went on and on. We talked about it, I think, for probably the first time in 97. And then, like, in 98, it was still like, well, everybody's busy. And then I think Mike called me finally and said, I don't think Jim, maybe he doesn't want to do this so much. So we started talking about other people. And I had heard the Flower Kings, and we had been on the same bill at LA Prog Fest. And I really liked them. And so I said, well, what about this guy, Royna? And so I brought Royna in, and Mike brought Pete in solely because when Dream Theater was opening for Marillion, like in, I don't know, whenever it was, in the late 80s or early 90s or whatever, at soundcheck, Pete had played a Chris Squire riff. And so because he happened to play that Chris Squire riff at during soundcheck, we wound up being in a band together for like 20 years.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we're running out of time, let's jump ahead to the new record now. So take me through the sort of history of recording of Jesus Christ, the Exorcist. From what I know, it's kind of like a retelling of Jesus, sort of like your own Jesus Christ Superstar, I guess, sort of in a way. Tell me about this whole project.
Well, it is my Jesus Christ Superstar, actually. How it started was this kind of funny New York music business guy called me up. That we were friends, and we talk pretty regularly. And he called me up and said, "Neal, my friends and I were listening to Jesus Christ the Exorcist. We were listening to Jesus Christ Superstar last night, and they were saying, man, somebody should do a new kind of version of this." And I said, I got the guy. You got to do it. He was really enthusiastic. And I laughed, and I didn't think much of it. Like, I get a lot of suggestions for a lot of projects. I just do. People especially because I'm known now as the concept album guy.
Yeah.
So people come to me with ideas like that all the time. And honestly, almost every concept album I've done practically has been born of some kind of conversation like that. Somebody on the internet or somebody who calls me on the phone and suggests, hey, you should do one on Martin Luther or whatever it is. So I thought about it and I prayed about it, and I felt like, after a month or so, I stopped laughing and I decided that I should take a stab at it. Why not? Yeah. And so around 2008, I did the first draft. I wrote it in about a couple months, and then I spent about a month demoing it. And then Michael was shopping it around New York to be a Broadway show for a while, and that didn't pan out. And then we just all went on to other things, and it sat dormant for about 9-10 years. And then we decided to put it on at Morse Fest 2018 as a live performance, which was very bold considering people hardly knew it. They only knew the demos from the Inner Circle. I have this fan club called the Inner Circle where you can get demos and unreleased things. And they were the only people that had ever heard it. But we felt like we should do it. We should put it out there. So then I started to do a rewrite, and at the same time I was starting to do a rewrite, Michael called and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe this. I think I've got a record deal for the Jesus musical," which was pretty extraordinary that it all happened at the same time.
That's hilarious how everything just kind of lined up in that way. It's crazy, too, the list of guest musicians you have on this record. I mean, you've got Ted Leonard, who's the current Spock's Beard singer, John from Petra, a lot of the Neal Morse band in here, your current lineup. The one I want to kind of talk about, though, is Matt Smith from Theocracy, and I know they did a cover of I'm in a Cage from the One album. Is that how you two initially met? How did you guys wind up working together on this?
Matt doesn't live too far, and he came up to sing a guest role on the Testimony album, I think at the very first Morse Fest. I think that was when he came. But Matt had come and sang a did a little guest role, and that was when we met. And then, of course, when I was looking for singers, I totally thought of him because he had such an amazing voice, and he just kills it as John the Baptist. I'm so glad you asked about him because I haven't really talked about him as much as I would like to. He's so great.
So you've got the new record coming out soon. Are there plans to put it on again? Do you think you'll be touring behind this, or even playing some songs in a set, or are there plans to take this further? What do you think?
We hope so. I mean, it really kind of depends on how it's received and how much demand there is for it. You know, I thought it would be premature to kind of book some shows. My vision for it, here's what I hope. What I hope is that we could do, you know, like a week in the theater, you know, with a cut down kind of cast, and do a sort of version like we did at Morse Fest with, you know, kind of half concert, half Broadway play, because we wouldn't be able to have scenes and costume changes. I mean, that'd be much too elaborate for where we are with it right now. You know, maybe in the future that will all change. But right now, I would love to do it, you know, maybe week by week, not like a one-night stands everywhere. It seems like it would be too difficult to take like this, some 20 people it would take to really put this on and move them around in a tour bus or tour buses. You know, it seems like something that should maybe do short stints for 4 or 5 nights in different places. That's what I hope happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that'll be so cool. So you've got this new record coming out. What else does the future hold for you? Is the Neal Morse band still continuing to tour? And do you think, you know, that band will do another record at some point soon?
Oh, I'm sure we'll do another record. We all just love that band so much, and we really love each other. And, you know, it's a very inspired, happy situation. So yeah, I'm sure we'll do more. Nothing's planned at the moment except for the big Grand Experiment extravaganza with choir and horns and strings at Morse Fest 2019, the night after Flying Colors performance at Morse Fest 2019. So that's something to definitely come to. I mean, it's going to be quite an epic thing you don't want to miss.
Oh, for sure. Sadly, we didn't get the chance to even talk about that band, but yeah, that's, you know. All right, Neal, I know you got to run, so thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview and for being patient earlier with our little technology problem. Really digging what I'm hearing on the new record. Wish it all the success, and hope to catch you soon.
All right, man. God bless you.
All right. Thanks so much. Take it easy. I'll see you.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.